Welcome in. I am Mike Pilch, Pilch's Perspective. So today we're going to look at something that has been a hot topic lately, and specifically over the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And that is comparing Babe Ruth to Shohei Ohtani. Now, it's truly not really fair to compare the two until this season's over and we really know where Ohtani stands with everything because he could go up or down. There's no way to know. So let's keep that in mind. But since it's kind of a hot button topic, we'll look into it. Now, there's certainly other players throughout Major League history that have had the ability to do both. Rick Ankiel started his career with the Cardinals in the late 90s into the early 2000s. Was a very good pitcher. Had Steve Blass disease where he couldn't get the ball over the plate. Went back to the minor leagues and he became a successful hitter, at least in the power department, for a handful of years. There are others that maybe played in the minor leagues as one or the other, then made the switch and got to the big leagues that way. There's other guys like a Johnny Lindell who maybe started as a pitcher and then became a hitter. There's other guys that might be drafted as an infielder or an outfielder who can throw 95. The point is, a lot of guys can do it, but these are the only two that have really done both at the same time for any extended period of time. So when you look at these two, they're virtually 100 years apart. And you've got to take the era they played in into consideration. Most historians will tell you that everything's kind of relative, and I believe that. So, how did you compare to the rest of your peers at the time you were playing? That's probably the best way to go about it. So, first of all, if you take an overall look at Ruth's career, the numbers are extraordinary. 342 lifetime hitter, that includes his time as a pitcher when he didn't hit as well. 474 on base, 690 slugging, the highest in history, and the highest OPS in history of 1164. An average year for Ruth was a 343 mark with 46 homers, 143 RBIs, 133 walks, and an OPS plus of 206. OPS plus means you're that 100 being even, you're that percentage better than the rest of the league average, taking your home park into consideration. It's kind of the one stat that I give a lot of credence to. So he was 106% better than the league average during his career. That is the highest in baseball history. And his average WAR, wins above replacement, was 10.5. That was his average per season. For Ohtani, only 4 years in 2020, let's say 3 1/3 years. 270 average, 345 on base, 549 slugging, OPS 894. Outstanding numbers, not really close to what Ruth was. Ohtani's average year, 38 homers, 104 knocked in, 270 average, 20 steals. A WAR of 3.6 per year compared to Ruth's 10.5. And OPS plus, that's an outstanding 136 compared to Ruth's 206. So for the overall career to this point, almost any way you want to look at it, Ruth's got him beat. That's not a surprise. Pitching, Ruth had an OPS over 1,014 times. And this year, Ohtani's is 1035, which is a ridiculously high number. Ruth had a higher OPS than that 13 times in his career. Now, pitching wise is where things kind of get interesting. Ruth was 94-46 in his career. Ruth essentially, I'll get into that later. With the 2.28 ERA, his ERA plus 122. He was 22% better than the league. 268 innings is what he averaged per year. Gave up on average 214 hits. 107 strikeouts, 97 walks. That was a very low strikeout era. They didn't throw as hard and all that. You also didn't pitch for strikeouts then. You kind of pitched to contact and let him put the ball in play. And it's kind of like that throughout most of baseball history till the mid to late 90s, honestly. Ohtani, nowhere near as long in his career, 67-46 with a 1.9 WAR. Ruth has him beat when you look at a lot of those numbers. But if you look at the career numbers and what they've done year by year, the value numbers all favor the Babe. In terms of, Ruth was a better pitcher than Ohtani has been relative to their eras. Ohtani's ERA plus um, is 134, which is also outstanding. Actually, that's better than Ruth's 122 for a career. Oh, no, it's not. Yes, it is. That's better than Ruth's 122. I'm actually looking at this year's numbers. Well, you get the point. They're both really good. Ruth has him beat, though, in virtually every number career wise. But what makes it interesting, and I was surprised by this, when you look at Ruth's career, he was essentially a pitcher between 1914 and 1917. There are a handful of games here and there he might play the outfield or first base. Basically, he pitched. In 1918, that was the year he essentially became a full-time outfielder or close to a full-time outfielder. He had 382 plate appearances that year. And the number of starts he made as a pitcher went way down. He appeared in 20 games in 1918, 19 as a starter. Throughout most of his career, he'd be in around 40 or so games and maybe start 35 a season. So his starts were a little more than half of where he normally was. So he didn't do it as often. That year he went 13-7 with a 2.22 ERA. That's a plus 122 for ERA plus. His WAR was 2.3. Ohtani is a pitcher this year, 4-1 with a 3.49. His ERA plus is 1.34. So Ohtani's got him beat in that regard relative to the era. But his WAR is not high as Ruth's. Ruth's was 2.3, Ohtani's 1.9. Not really a big difference there. Now, offensively, Ruth that year hit 300. He led the league with 11 home runs. Yes, in 1918, 11 led the loop. Drove in 61, had 58 walks. He had a 4.11 on base, a 5.55 slugging, and a 9.66 OPS. His OPS plus was 192. His WAR was 4.7. Ohtani this year, 273, 33 homers, 72 knocked in. 357 on base, that's lower than Ruth's. 678 slug, that is higher than Ruth's. 1035 OPS. His OPS plus, again, relative to the league, 171. So Ruth actually does beat him relative to the league. His offensive WAR was 3.6, Ruth's 4.7. They're actually pretty close when you look at that. I guess in terms of player value statistics, through WAR and all that, Ruth was more valuable to his team than Ohtani is now. But relative to league average, Ohtani's actually got him beat in ERA plus and OPS plus. Some of the raw numbers, not so. And again, the WAR goes to Ruth. I am surprised by that. I didn't expect them to be that close. They're actually quite close. And this is really the only season of Ruth's career where he really was a pitcher and a hitter truly at the same time, was 1918. Now in 1919, Ruth made 15 starts, 17 appearances, went 9-5 with a 2.97 ERA. His ERA plus that year was only 102, so he was essentially a league average pitcher in 1919. But he played way more in the field. Had 543 plate appearances, had 29 home runs, 113 knocked in, 34 doubles, walked 101 times, hit 322 at 1114 OPS at a 217 OPS plus. Ruth himself basically admitted he liked pitching on the days he pitched. He didn't like not playing every day and being a hitter. First of all, he just loved to mash, and he just liked playing every day. And he kind of, I don't want to say lost interest in pitching, but his focus was definitely on the everyday hitting by 1919. Then in 1920, he went to the Yankees, and from that point on, he was a hitter. He would pitch just kind of for fun late in the year in September if the Yankees were out of the race or something, and just go pitch a game or two here and there. It's basically all he did. So Ruth really had 2 seasons where he did both. And in both of those seasons, his starts and pitching appearances were dramatically cut back. It's yet to be seen how it works for Ohtani. But if Ohtani could essentially do this for just 1 or 2 more seasons and still do it at a pretty good level, let alone a very high level, he's kind of got him beat. He's probably relative to the era not better than Ruth. That's kind of why I have issues when say he's better than Babe Ruth. Well, no, he's not. There's an old rule of thumb a lot of historians have. It's say don't ever embarrass yourself by comparing somebody to Babe Ruth, and that's kind of the way it works. But Ohtani has been incredible with what he's done, and I have to say, until I dove into these numbers, I didn't realize they were really this close. Few things that are should be remembered for context. Ohtani this year has thrown, I had it somewhere, 67 innings. He barely averages 5 innings a start. And I know we're in a different time and a lot of pitchers and relievers, but that's one of the reasons his WAR isn't higher. He barely gives you 5 innings per start. So he's almost like a 5 inning closer at the beginning of the game. So you still need 4 more innings of outs from the Angels bullpen, which has kind of been an issue for him throughout a lot of the years recently. So he does help the team when he's out there, but when you're only going 5 innings, it's hard to say he's truly an elite starter because even today, most of the elite starters are going deeper than that. Ruth, as was the era, would go 9 when possible. Ruth did have a tendency to tire out from the 7th inning on throughout his career. That was one kind of weakness as a pitcher. He'd be really good for 6 or 7 innings and have a tendency to tire out after that. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, remember what Ruth did in the postseason. To say Ruth was a big game player was one of the understatements of the millennium. In 10 World Series, 41 games, he hit .326 with a 12.14 OPS, 15 homers, 33 ribbies. That includes him going 1 for 11 in the World Series as a pitcher. So you take that away, the numbers are even better. He had one series in 1922 where he struggled. He went 2 for 17. Other than that, he basically went bananas in every series he played in. And in the World Series as a pitcher, how did he do there? Well, in 3 games, he was 3-0 with an .087 earned run average. Ruth also played very, very well in the All-Star game. Granted, it was only 2 All-Star games. He also was big on opening day. Hit a home run at Yankee Stadium the day it opened. He was a guy that in the big moments was there and delivered and stepped up. And that was another thing that kind of helped build his celebrity popularity at the time movies were getting going at the same time. And he was one of the people that kind of ushered in modern day celebrity. Make of that what you will. Ohtani hasn't had that opportunity in the postseason yet, even though it's easier to kind of get to the postseason now. And it's not really fair to judge them head to head until all that happens. And like I said, until Ohtani finishes this year. Another thing, just this is my own personal thing I'm going to throw in. I'm still very skeptical as to how long Ohtani's going to be able to do this. We've already seen the Angels give him more time between starts. He's had a number of starts this season where the velocity's gone from, I think he averages 96, 97 average on his fastball. He's had some starts this year where he might be 88 to 92, and the stuff just hasn't been there for him. And I got to think that's a result of him playing in the field, or I should say hitting, the days he doesn't pitch. He does play in the outfield occasionally. Usually they DH him. But when you're playing every day through the course of a 6-month season, and you've got to mentally focus on hitting, you've still got to run the bases and just be out there. There's no way that doesn't sometimes take away from his pitching, because you're just not going to be as fresh physically every time you're out there. And that may be one of the reasons he struggles with his stamina too. And major league pitchers, minor league pitchers, college pitchers, there's a routine. You don't just sit around 4 days in between starts. There's all kinds of weightlifting and stretching and throwing on the side, be it a bullpen or flat work or long toss. I have no idea what Ohtani's between start workout routine is, and nobody seems to. The Angels are very hush-hush on it. I find it hard to believe you could spend that much time between all your starts all season and then still prepare to hit and be in the lineup every day. I have no idea. It's just hard to believe. And for all these reasons, that's why I really wonder how long he'll be able to do this. I'm still very skeptical I almost wonder if it would be better to bring him in for like an inning here and there where he can just blow it by people for an inning and be like a high leverage reliever. I have no idea. We'll wait and see how fate plays out. But I'm still very skeptical that he'll be able to pull this off for long. But that's kind of a rundown of Ruth against Ohtani. When you look relative to their league, Ruth has him beat. WAR he's got him beat, but actually, some of the relative to their league numbers, Ohtani's got him beat for this season in terms of when Ruth did it full time and Ohtani's done it full time. Ohtani has been slightly better, but he's still got almost half a season to go, and we'll see how things play out. But right now, he really is